Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel and welcome to another GT Sport Daily AC Race and Strategy Guide. It's week 37 of 2021 and this week we are heading to Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit and we are taking the Group 2 machinery around this very tight, twisty and dangerous track. And as far as I'm aware, it's a fairly original combination. Certainly since I've been playing the game, I don't remember taking Group 2 machines around Brands Hatch. And on top of that, they have given us a very interesting race strategy-wise. We've got 15 laps to get round, tyres at ×9, fuel at ×2, and just the racing medium tyres available. Your BOP is on, slipstream real, the rolling start, and there is no damage. So as I said, they've given us a very interesting strategic race for a change, I have to say. We actually have two genuine strategy options. Now you might well say that we usually have two strategy options when it's the soft and the mediums, because you can either do the soft medium or the medium soft. But in this case, when I say two genuine strategy options, we have the choice between doing the no stop or doing a one stop. And as you're going to see, they're both going to have very much their pros and cons, and they're both going to work out very, very equal. So let's work through the first of our strategies, and that is going to be the no stop. We're in the Nissan GTR here for the tests. Not necessarily saying it is the best car. We will take a look at some of the other cars a little bit later on in the video, but let's move on with the no stop strategy. And yeah, it is definitely very much on. Now the tyre wear is at ×9, which is pretty high for the racing medium tyres. Group 2 machinery as well, which tend to kind of burn through the tyres quite quickly. And Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit is certainly not very kind on the tyres either. Fairly short circuit, but very much full of corners and a lot of high speed corners as well. So moving on to lap number 10 here on the no stop strategy, and this is where I would say the problems start to begin with the tyres. Up until lap number 9 there, lap times fairly steady, lapping within around about 0.2 of a second for the majority of the laps. But lap number 10 here, as we come into the last corner, this is the lap where I started to feel the car starting to get a little bit sketchy, started to feel the tyres starting to hurt a little bit, and that's going to be reflected in the lap time here. A 1:17.9, quite a big increase over our previous lap. I think there might have been a little bit of a mistake in there, probably caused by that tyre wear. And that kind of trend was going to continue for the rest of the no stop run here. The kind of degradation on the tyres meant that the car just became trickier and trickier to drive. Lap times became far less consistent. And as you can see, as we jump here to the second half of lap number 15, we are now into the 1:18s, and significantly into the 1:18s, it must be said. And that's in contrast to 1:16.7s and 8s that we were doing at the beginning of the race. So quite heavy tyre degradation from start to finish. As we kind of come into the last corner here, we will take a closer look at that tyre wear. You can see it is the left hand side tyres doing the most work. It's mostly right hand turns here, so all the load goes on the left hand side tyres. 60% wear on that rear tyre, so you can understand why the car becomes very tricky to drive at this stage. Over the finish line we come a 1:18.8 that we finish with, so 2 seconds slower than our fastest lap. In terms of finishing time, it's a 19:28.0, fairly long daily race at sea, but keep that in mind, a 19:28.0 as we move on to the one stop strategy. Now you might well be thinking, well surely it's just a no stop strategy. Gran Turismo Sport or Polyphony Digital changed the pit losses to be much longer, basically meaning that every race where you can kind of just use one set of tyres becomes a no stop strategy. And well, for a lot of tracks that is the case, but Brands Hatch had an exceptionally short pit lane, even for Gran Turismo Sport standards, even before the change to the pit losses. I think it was around about 3 to 4 seconds for likes of Group 3 and Group 4, and Group 2 has always been a little bit quicker than those categories. So despite the fact that the pit stop is now a little bit longer, it actually isn't that long that it makes the one stop strategy unusable. So we know from the no stop strategy that around about lap number 9, lap number 10 is where the tyres start to go off. So on lap number 8 here, we are actually going to peel off into the pits and take on a fresh set of mediums. So over halfway through the race, the kind of thing, the interesting thing about the one stop strategy is you've probably got quite a big pit window to work with, depending on how that race is unfolding. Now do be careful coming into the Brands Hatch pit lane, very tight and tricky, very easy to bounce off the barriers and end up doing a bit of an Austin Powers moment. I have been there, done it before. Now, as you can see, car instantly into the box, and as we come out the pits, the pit loss is only 10 seconds. Fuel, no issue whatsoever. You will finish the race with 50% fuel, so fuel is of no concern as per daily race C usual. But yeah, just a 10-second pit loss, and you can see how bad the tyres were at the end of the no-stop strategy. So this is going to be pretty close, because we're going to be significantly quicker than a car doing the no-stop strategy over the second part of the race. So as you can see, it wasn't the best of runs here, or consistent runs for myself with the fresh tyres, but we did manage to do some pretty decent lap times. Lapping in the sort of mid 1 minute 16s in comparison to very high 1 minute 17s and low 1 minute 18s that we were doing on the no-stop strategy at this point. So significant lap time advantage, as you would expect with the fresh tyres over the no-stop strategy, but will it be enough to overhaul that loss in the pit lane? Remember, 19 minutes 28.0 was our finishing time for the no-stop strategy, and 19 minutes 27.7, so 3 tenths quicker for the one-stop strategy. Now, of course, that is just set in clean air. There's obviously going to be pros and cons for each strategy, and when we go to the part of the video where we put all the information up on the screen, I'm going to discuss those pros and cons. But first, before we get there, I would like to just kind of briefly talk about car selection. So only 6 Group 2 cars to work our way through. Decided to jump in, do a trio of laps at each one of them, just to get a small impression as to how they were faring and to see what car I think might be the best. Now, we used the Nissan GTR. Our lap times with full fuel and fresh set of tyres were around about 1 minute 16.7, 1 minute 16.8. Here in the Rebrig NSX from 2016, you can see we've done a 1:16.8, our optimal a 1:16.4. To be honest with you, it doesn't seem significantly quicker to me than the GTR, despite the fact you would expect a handling car to excel around Brands Hatch. And of course, the NSX is a tricky beast, so we of course binned it into Sheen Corner, I believe that might be called. Next up, we have the Lexus RCF 2016. I always find this car to be very, very similar pace-wise to the Nissan GTR. It does have a reputation for being slightly better on the tyres. It doesn't quite have the same top speed as the GTR, but that's not going to be important around a track like Brands Hatch. And to be honest with you, the Lexus felt very, very nice. We're actually going to set a 1:16.5. Now that's quicker than any lap I managed in any other car for kind of lap 3. An optimal 1:16, I can't remember what it was, but seemed very, very comparable to the Nissan GTR, and I think it might actually be the sleeper, possibly the best car for the race if that kind of reputation on the tyre wear is true. Next up, we've got the 2008 Lexus. No idea what's going on with that roll bar cage there, why that's in there, you know, going for realism, but just remove it PD, because I can't see a thing when I'm driving this car. Didn't really set a brilliant lap time, optimal 1:16.9. From what I could tell, the 2008 cars were maybe giving up around about half a second to the 2016 cars. The Nismo GTR here, always a very nice car to drive, but again, not quite on pace with its modern day equivalents. The closest of the 2008 cars are sort of optimal there of a 1:16.7, so certainly usable. And again, very nice car to drive, and if you're looking for a nice stable car, comfortable car, might be something to look at. And finally, we have the Epson NSX from 2008. Well, we all know this car has a fearsome reputation for being tricky, and it's proved no different around here. In terms of optimal, lap time of 1:16.9, so certainly in the same category or region as its fellow 2008 cars. But this car is deadly, and it's about to prove why as we go through this next corner here. Didn't really do a whole lot long, bucket load of oversteer, and off we went. So the 2008 NSX just doing 2008 NSX things. Let's move on to the part of the video though where we reiterate all the information gathered and we talk about the pros and cons of each of these strategies. So first up, we've got the no-stop strategy. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think this strategy is viable for a lot of drivers out there, even for the best tyre savers, and I'm pretty good at saving tyres, definitely one of my strengths. The tyres are absolutely toast towards the end. I had 60% tyre wear on my left rear. If you're not very good at your tyres, you're going to be looking at 80%, and that's going to make your car practically undrivable. I was getting to the part where pretty much getting very difficult to drive, and you can have enough problems with this circuit without having a car that has no rear tyres. So it is a very viable strategy for the tyre savers out there, but I think for the pad players and even the wheel players who are aggressive on their tyre wear, you have to be kind of maybe not risking this one. It's just not going to be viable because you're losing so much time towards the end of the race. You will lose less time with a pit stop and maybe having to make a few overtakes. Moving on to the one-stop strategy, this is where things do get quite interesting. It's probably the marginally quicker strategy, to be honest with you, just because the sort of tyre advantage towards the end of the race is so great. But what's kind of interesting about it is we know the tyres will last up to around about 9 laps. Now if you find yourself maybe lap 4 or 5 or 6 stuck in a pack of cars, you might want to maybe make an early pit stop, try and get a bit of clean air, kind of effectively do an undercut. You are going to be suffering towards the end of the race with the tyres compared to maybe somebody who pits at lap 9 or 10, but you know, the clean air may well be worth it because Brands Hatch, notoriously difficult circuit to overtake on. Yeah, you may well be giving up track position to a few people out there who are on the no-stop strategy as well, but it's all pros and cons. With this race, I think if you find yourself being the only no-stopper and amongst a whole lot of people who are all stopping, you get caught by that pack towards the end of the race. They will just jostle you and push you out the way, and you'll just find yourself plummeting down the order. Alternatively, if you happen to be the only one-stopper in amongst a group of drivers who are all no-stopping, you run into the same problem, you end up losing track position, and then you've got to try and work your way through all those cars. So it's a very, very interesting race in my opinion. One of the hardest races for me to kind of recommend the strategy for you. So hopefully I can only give you the information that I've gathered and then let you make your own assessments from that. But I'm looking forward to seeing what strategy comes out top as the week progresses. Anyway, into a lap guide we go, and into turn number 1. You're looking for the number 2 board way back there, and between the 2 and 1 boards where you want to be braking just before the bridge or the overhead bridge for turn number 2. Watch that curve on the inside, it can't upset the car, lose a lot of the track on the outside. Beginning of the curve for turn number 3, trying to save your tyres as much as possible, maybe using gears slightly higher than you would be expecting to look after those tyres. The last board for turn number 5, is it? One of the hardest corners on the track, one of the hardest corners in the game in my opinion. It's just one of these corners very hard to get the trajectory right. Then running towards the fast right-hander. The last board is your kind of reference points for braking. Drop it down a couple of gears, throw it in, let the downforce do its work. The red barrier marker on the outside of the turn 7, I believe, is your reference marker, and the last board just before that, gently braking, throwing the car into the blind apex, and the last board here is your reference for this left-hander here. And as we come towards the last corner, you've got the paved part of the track on the right hand side, so the left hand side of the track, that's your reference for the tricky last turn. It's off camber, so just be careful, the car will try to run wide. Sorry, that is an extremely poor lap guide. I should have done my research and got all the corner names before we did it, but hopefully there's been something useful in there. Maybe not with the lap guide, hopefully with the strategy. Anyway, as I said, very much looking forward to see how this one's going to unfold. Should be a very interesting week. And you're going to see a lot of people trying to do the no-stop strategy, I think, on absolutely shot tyres, certainly on Monday and Tuesday. Anyway, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button if you like what we're doing on the channel. Hopefully the video's been helpful, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.